Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the live stream. I have a really awesome guest. We've had him here before, and I'll tell you more about it here in a second. So, before we go on, I want to thank everyone for coming in. It's been a little bit of a delay because my guest is an extremely busy man. But welcome, Kevin Hawthorne, David Carlisle, Amy Harrell, Liberty Bleeds Silver, Michael Nancy Stacking. And did I miss anyone? David, I already got David Carlisle. Mr. Happy Stacker. Would the moderators be so kind as to say hello to everyone if I don't do it myself? Because sometimes I get a little distracted with so many multitaskings that I have to do here. So, well, it looks like my guest kind of had a technical issue. Are you still there?
Yes. Can you hear me? Hello.
I can hear you. There you go. You're
okay.
back.
All right.
So welcome to my guest, Mr. Chris Pitt, who is an attorney. He was part of the West Virginia House of Delegates, kind of like the West Virginia House of Representatives. And he was the one that introduced two bills to West Virginia to get gold and silver recognized as money, something that would help all of us, especially those of us here in West Virginia, but would certainly help if we get more and more and more states involved in all of this. So welcome, Chris. How are you doing?
Hey, good to be with you, Tiger. Thanks for having me.
Appreciate having you back again. So it's been a while since we last talked.
Yes, that's right.
So as I understand, you have termed out, but you're still part of all the interworkings of what is going on with legislation, which brings us to a very interesting topic. A lot of the people here in the chat wonder, why can't we get this and why can't we get that for sound money and for other things also in legislation. And when you and I last talked off camera, you were wanting to educate everyone how things work in legislation and why it's so difficult to get things going. And I'm just going to let you have the mic. This is your show today.
Sure. Well, thanks again. Thanks for having me on. It's always an honor to talk with you and to talk through some of this. Well, the main point I think everybody should take from this, and I'll just tell everybody right from the beginning, is that to get any kind of piece of legislation through the complete process, it is incredibly difficult. I mean, we're talking about introducing the bill from that point to the point where it's signed by the governor or otherwise becomes law, because there are, in many ways, there's in most states there's a way for bills to become law even without a governor signing off on it. So the first step for any kind of legislation, whether it's at the federal or state level, is that somebody has to introduce it. If you're a member of the legislature, as I was for 4 years, one of the things that you could do is you could introduce whatever piece of legislation that you want. And it's like that in just about every state. So if I have an idea on something, or one of my constituents or somebody I know has an idea on something, I call up the what's called the bill drafting department. I tell them what I want, and they turn it into legislative action. They turn it into a bill that gets introduced. Now, in West Virginia, we have a 60-day session. Other states, they go year round, and there's a lot of states that are just somewhere in between. So, for example, I think with Texas, from what I understand, is in session for about 120 days, but only every 2 years. And so every 2 years, they're in session for 120 days, and that's it. In West Virginia, we're 60 days per year, and other states are to varying degrees in session. Right now, the West Virginia legislature is not in session. They're in session from basically January through March. That's the legislative session. So what has to happen is somebody introduces a bill. Once it gets introduced by a member of the legislature, the Speaker of the House or the Senate President, what they will do is whoever's the head of the legislative body that's voted in, they will refer that bill to one or more committees. So, for example, when I was in there, I think my bill on gold and silver was referred to both the banking committee and the finance committee. And so what that means is that for anything to pass, it's got to go through both of those committees. Okay. Once it goes through both of those committees, at that point, it ends up on the floor of the House. Okay, that's sort of the process. Now, there's a lot of hurdles you have to get past along the way. The most critical hurdles that you have to get past is the fact that you've got to get each committee head to sign off on it. If they don't like the bill, generally speaking, they are not going you're not going to be able to get the bill passed. There there is a way to get around that, which I'll talk about here in a minute, but generally speaking, that's how it gets through the process. So, for example, my bill on gold and silver, it was referred to both of those committees. Once it goes to one, if it passes, then it moves on to the other. And sometimes, and it's completely up to the head of the legislative body, for example, the Speaker of the House in my instance, they could triple reference it. They could refer it to several committees, and so more than two, as many as he wants. And so what happens is it gets put on the agenda, and then once it goes from one committee, it goes to the other. And if you're lucky enough that it gets through both committees, there's another committee made up of people handpicked by the head of the legislature, in the House of Delegates or the Senate, who decide whether to bring something onto the floor. Okay, so that's another hurdle you've got to get past. And so every step along the way, you have to have a lot of support. And it's worth emphasizing here that even if a majority of the members of the legislature would vote in favor of your bill, okay, that means that it's not necessarily going to get through in the event that they get to that point of, yeah, of even having that level of support. Now, once it gets through one body, at that point, it's got, let's say it passes the House of Representatives or the House of Delegates in our instance, then it's got to go over to the state Senate. And it's basically the same process. So you get through that entire process in one body, it goes over to the other side, it's got to get through that entire process over there. And then eventually what happens is, if you happen to get it through both of those bodies, and at that point, and you do it in enough time, it's going to go to the governor, or for example, if on the federal level, it would go to the president if it's federal legislation. So that's the process. So there are a large number of stakeholders that have to sign off on this. Okay, and so and one of the things that I found is that, like, for example, in West Virginia, we have a supermajority of Republicans. But one of the problems you run into is when you have a supermajority, the political party that's in power, for all practical purposes, factionalizes into two groups. In West Virginia, we've got the rhinos and we've got the conservatives. So that's sort of like the two main factions, I would say. And so that's overall the process. And if somebody doesn't like a bill, people who give lots of donations, chances are they're highly associated with the head of certain committees. So if the bankers don't like a committee, they're going to do everything they can, or they don't like a piece of legislation, the bankers, they're going to do everything they can to oppose that legislation. That chances are they've given monetary donations to the committee chair, and that's when people just need to know how difficult it really is to move legislation. And that's overall, that's sort of a broad overview of the process, Tiger.
Yeah, I see that. In fact, I see Mr. Happy Stacker mentioned Schoolhouse Rock. I don't know if you were old enough to remember that
Oh
little
yeah,
cartoon.
absolutely.
And it's kind of a very simplified version for children, but certainly did cover a lot of that.
Yes.
So how did that play out with your two bills to try to get your bills to pass through? I know
What?
they're kind of gathering dust, but
Yeah, they didn't go anywhere. I was not able to get them put on any kind of committee agenda. So I hope to change that in the future if I ever get back there. I'll be making an announcement probably here in the next couple of months as to what my intentions are as to whether I'm going to be returning to the legislature if I might. So I'll keep everybody posted on that. But yeah, there was a lot of opposition to these bills, and I think the problem is, and I don't understand the concern over it, because all we're really wanting is it's not going to directly, I mean, I don't see what the banks would have to worry about with this if they're really confident that what they're offering through the traditional monetary system, or I should say that the newer monetary system, not the traditional, the newer monetary system, historically speaking, that doesn't involve the backing of gold. Um, I don't know what they're afraid of. I mean, people should have the right to use whatever tender they want. If people want to use gold, they should be able to have the right to use that as legal tender.
I totally agree with you. The problem I have, and a lot of us in the community, what we're concerned about is the fact that them taking us off the gold standard has allowed for fiscal irresponsibility, printing of
Right.
money, inflation is continuing. Bringing gold back into the system mandates fiscal responsibility. And
Hmm.
because the rising price of gold, which has been happening, is certainly an indication of a failing economy. With the
Yes.
issue of stablecoin, they originally wanted to go with CBDCs, but there was a lot of opposition nationwide, so they did what I like to call a strategic retreat and started using a similar idea called stablecoin. And it's not federally governed. It can be made by anyone, Walmart, states, banks, whatever, kind of reflects what happened prior to 1907 when you had all this different types of paper currency, which created a lot of confusion and chaos, where then the people were demanding the government take over and be the central issue, which started the uh, outlawing of any other type of currency other than what the federal government allowed. Then
Hmm.
1910, where the financiers, the bankers, the big boys, slipped off to Jekyll Island and created the idea to present 3 years later and get passed under President Woodrow Wilson the Federal Reserve Act, which is certainly not federal and they have no reserves.
Right.
So this to me looks like it's a repeat of history. Let stablecoin go through. Let Bitcoin and all the others be there. And when people get tired of all the craziness and the potential chaos, then they'll be begging for CBDC. Either which way, stablecoin or CBDC allows for the potential for the government to control the people monetarily. So that's where I personally worry that the financiers, the big banks, the little banks, and everyone in between is concerned that they're going to lose their power, which has been happening for a long time. And in fact, next time you take the mic, I'm going to look up something that I have in my computer that was a speech given in 1924 by the British major banker Montague Norman. You'll be surprised what it says, but history does have a tendency to repeat itself. So one of the things that I think needs to be done is what I've also seen. We in the community have seen. They've been trying to suppress the price of silver and gold through paper markets, through ETFs, and just manipulate. And there's approximately like 138 paper golds to 1 ounce of real gold, and there's about 130 plus paper ounces of silver to 1 ounce of real silver. But now we're in a situation where, especially in silver, especially with big places like India demanding physical delivery, the LBMA is nearly tapped out. They had to have airplanes shipped from COMEX to LBMA to ship back out. which is concerning. And a lot of this silver is going to India and also to China. And if we're having tariffs with China and tariffs with Russia and threatened tariffs with India, why are we giving our silver over to the LBMA to give over to them? It's a very interesting question. We're giving up our wealth that we have here to help them. So, in a similar note, if there's a lot of financiers here in West Virginia opposing it, what's their motivation? Is it similar to what I've just described? Is it something else? And I honestly think that nationally and state-wise, what we need is a movement that is exceeding their power. There's
Right.
only a small percentage of them, and there is a lot of us. We
Well,
have the voting power.
yes. Something I do want to emphasize, though, is that when it comes to this sort of thing, we do have power in terms of our numbers. And one of the things that's interesting historically, and a lot of people don't realize this, but there's a general rule of thumb when it comes to political movements. And it's the idea that 3%, and this was true during the American Revolution, and it's been true throughout history, you only need to have about 3% of the total population activated. Okay, about 3%. If you can get to the point where you have 3% of the electorate activated, I'm not just saying people who are just on some basic level involved in something. I'm talking about actively involved in advocacy. If you can get to the point where 3% are there, they're working the phones, they're doing grassroots activities, they're they're making phone calls, they're writing letters, they're active. If you can get to the point, and it was true during the American Revolution and it's true now, you just need 3% of the population. I mean, historically, that's all you need. If you can get 3% of the population activated on an issue or issues or on some sort of big movement, that's enough to turn the tide. Okay. I mean, if you go back to even in recent memory, things on issues that you and I might not even agree with, that without going into any kind of details, certain issues that the people listening right here might not necessarily agree with, but things that happened even over the past 30 years, it only involved probably around 3% of the total population being activated and and moving on an issue. Okay, that's something that everybody needs to be aware of. Is that it doesn't take that much, but you have to have people that are involved. Something else that I think everybody should be aware of is that this issue, gold and silver, does fit within. I mean, we have natural allies out there that are highly motivated, that are working on not just this issue, but other issues. It's and people here might not realize that we have natural allies in the liberty movement. I mean, the broader liberty movement, where the issues like this that are important to us, they fit within a broader movement when it comes to liberty in the United States. There are groups that are helping elect, for example, state legislators. Like, for example, Make Liberty Win PAC and Young Americans for Liberty. A lot of these groups actually came out of the remnants of the Ron Paul campaign back in 2012. Okay, so sort of the aftermath of that formed into a movement that is not just talking about this issue. And I know we're just here to talk about this issue, but we have allies and people who are advocating for this, but are also advocating for other issues as well that are consistent with this philosophy. Just the broader idea of greater liberty in the United States. So, for example, Make Liberty Win, what they're advocating for, they have an approach where they just help state, and they help me. I'll just be transparent about that. They helped me win in my past elections, and what they do is, the whole idea is to not necessarily focus on the big flashy races out there like Congress or US Senate. No, they don't focus on those races. They focus on state legislative races, because the basic idea is if we can get enough people in office on local elections and state legislature offices, then eventually 5, 10 years down the road, we're going to have sort of a farm team to really take on a lot of these issues in a bigger way. And so that's something that I think everybody should be aware of.
That makes sense. Funny thing you mentioned 3%. My very first YouTube teacher in precious metals, her name is Lynette Zhang. That's her picture right
Uh-huh.
there. She mentions a lot. If we can get 3% of the populace, I keep
Uh-huh.
thinking 3%. How in the world are we going to get 3%? And what will that really do? Now I understand that we've got a historical basis for it.
Oh, okay. I'm sure she's probably talking about the same historical fact that I was talking of. She might not have might not have explained it in the same way,
Well,
but
she will frequently tell everyone that she's financial. She's not political,
mhm,
but she's a very good teacher. Um, she's also part of an organization that I introduced you to, Citizens for Sound Money.
mhm.
So maybe I can introduce the two of you together, and that whole thing. So I would love to see you back in the legislature. We certainly need to put the financiers in place. If you look at our history, uh, President Andrew Jackson went toe to toe against the bankers trying to take over the country way back then, and nothing's changed. But eventually, people get tired of being taken advantage of. So, what I would love to see is good sound legislature going on in every state, especially ours, and basically would like to see you back in a seat, and and then obviously it has to be your decision. It's your choice and your career and your life, and plus on top of that, you have a wife and children, so you got to keep them happy too. So, but let me open this up to the chat. If anyone has questions for Chris, please put it in capital so I can see it. Christy, can you see the screen, or are you just only in the StreamYard version?
Just in the StreamYard version, I can't see questions or anything. I don't know where I'd go for that.
Well, basically, if you mute yourself on, well, actually, no, you can split your screen. Let me try to give you an example here. I'll try to give you here. Bear with me. Okay, this is the screen here, and if you go in here and type in what you want to type, let's say currently you're in StreamYard, and you go to another tab, you can then type in YouTube, pull it up, and separate it. Then bring it back in and kind of tab it this way, where you can say go into StreamYard here if you want to for live sound, and when you're in here, you can just go ahead and let's see here if I can get in. When you get in, just mute it, because it's usually a little delayed in there. So, but you can go ahead and set it up in such a way that, and go to live chat, and then you'll
Okay.
get to see everyone talking there live. Even though the screen will be a little delayed, this right here will be live, and you can see the chat while you're still getting the vocals live from StreamYard. Does that make sense?
I think so. It might be easier if you just would you be able to just read off what the questions are? Maybe that
Of
would be,
course,
yeah, that
of
might be
course.
easier.
No, that'd be fine. I'd be happy to do that. No
Okay.
problem. Let
All
me go
right.
ahead and bring this off and bring us back. Okay, so Liver bleeds silver. Would it be easier just to open up a YouTube app and watch? I don't know. Maybe he can do that on his phone too. Um, I'm not seeing a question as of yet, but please
Okay.
put it in caps, everyone.
All
Uh,
right.
hey, Angry Warrior. Steve looking for silver. THS. Did I miss anyone? Long live coins. So basically, one of the things I would like, if you would be willing to, Chris, is if you do decide to announce you're running, would
Mm-hmm.
you be so willing to let me have it so I can put everything into my YouTube to see if anyone would be willing to contribute to your campaign?
Absolutely, yes, yes, and I would be very appreciative if of any kind of support. Absolutely, I would certainly do that.
Yeah, I personally plan on sending you the state maximum, which in this state is not that much, guys. $2,800. A lot of other states, they have a lot more money that they allow for donations. But West Virginia being a less profitable state, for lack of a better way of saying it,
Yes,
they don't have as much financial expectations. And certainly, but the weird thing about this state is they tax the crap out of us.
mm-hmm.
So I I had a situation about 2 years ago where the state increased their state taxes, but the feds allowed me to get a little bit of tax benefit for hurrying up and paying off the state taxes. But that's just what we deal with high taxes. But we really need to get this legislature in place. And in my opinion, if Chris says yes to announcing his candidacy, I'm jumping on board.
Well,
So
thank you so much. I really, really appreciate that. And it's just any level of support helps candidates. One of the things that I think is, and look, the people that are opposed to this sort of thing, whether it's this or other similar issues, they a lot of times they have large donors that are helping them out, and what they do is that, but it can be overcome. It can certainly be overcome. What the bankers are wanting, what the special interests are wanting, all of that can be overcome through grassroots help, small donations, volunteering. That's something else that I think people need to realize too, is that you could the lower the level, the more of an impact that somebody can have on any kind of legislative race, or even like a city council race. So for example, $100 donation at a city council race, if you want to support somebody, it can go a long ways, and it's going to go a lot longer than, let's say, the same donation on the state legislative race, for example. So in volunteering, sometimes people don't have the ability to contribute monetarily, but they can volunteer their time, and that's something else that can be really, really helpful too, is just volunteering time. In past elections, one of the things I did is I had a hand addressed letter where we had envelopes that went out, and it went over really well, because people would, instead of just getting your usual thing in the mail, I had an address written on there, and the person opened it up and looked at it and just really appreciated it. Had just a stamp on it, and that takes a lot of work, but it's a way that people can help out sometimes.
you can.
Yep.
You can. In fact, if you do decide to do this, and if I'm not working, just let me know what I can do that's in my power to do so.
Yep.
You know,
Abs- yep.
some of us are not as political savvy. Tiger's one of them. Uh, Tiger might need a little bit of, hey, Tiger, don't go there, don't say that, don't do this. But in the meantime, I can certainly be out there trying to get people to realize what you can bring to the table. So it'll help the community in West Virginia, and would add yet another state to recognizing gold and silver as sound money.
Mm-hmm.
But in addition to the finances, you need a little extra muscle in the punch.
Yeah.
So when you're presenting different legislation, to get the opposition to realize this is certainly not an easy task. So Batman needs his Robin.
Well, absolutely. So, something else I want to talk about too, Tiger, is there's a concept called the Overton window. And I don't know if we've ever discussed, have we discussed that concept before, the Overton window? I
Never
keep,
heard it.
well, here's the basic idea. It comes from a political scientist who came up with the concept. And we're farther along in this than that. I mean, we're moving along with this particular issue fairly well compared to other issues. And I'll use this as an example. Let's say you take any kind of idea that has materialized to the point where it's in legislation and it has passed. It's passed somewhere. Okay. That idea has crossed what's called the Overton window. But before it even gets there, then it's got to go through a huge process, okay, as an idea, as a concept. So legislation being passed in at least one state, that's the end result. Now beyond that, you want to have more and more states pass similar legislation, and then hopefully one of these days it would be passed across the board. But before you get there has to be an idea, originally, initially, that idea might be so far-fetched, so out there. And this isn't what we're talking about here, is clearly approaching or past the Overton window. In the past, certain concepts, so I want to talk about, and I'll use something that might be considered a radical idea. Okay. Now and I'm just throwing this out here. I'm not making commentary on this one way or the other. But I've talked to a few people who believe that we should go ahead and reverse what we did when we made U.S. senators elected by the people. As the Constitution was originally written, U.S. senators were not elected. They were chosen by their state legislators. Okay, but around the time that all of this terrible legislation and these terrible things were happening under Woodrow Wilson, for example. Well, I mean, I'm sure that everybody here is very familiar with that. That's when we went with when the Federal Reserve was created, and a lot of bad things were happening in our country. Okay. During that same time period, there was legislation and a constitutional amendment that came up that made it so that U.S. senators were elected rather than passed into office through their state legislature. Okay, there was a time up until the beginning part of the 20th century, we didn't have elected senators, and some people are starting to think that maybe just a few people, not a whole lot of people, but if you do some research, you'll find people that want us to reverse that amendment that allows direct elections for various reasons. But that's, as of right now, that's a very radical idea. Very radical idea. And there are other ideas that are probably pretty radical too. But so that's nowhere close to the Overton window. But an issue like this, I mean, as you know, Tiger, there are all sorts of states that are passing really strong legislation when it comes to gold and silver. Not enough, probably only a handful. I don't have the exact number, but only a handful of states. But we're building, we have a lot of momentum. It's not like we're just out there in the wilderness and we don't have any chance of passing this. I think we have a real opportunity here. And if we can create some natural alliances with other individuals and groups within the liberty movement, I think we can. I think this is something that's ripe to pass across the country. And maybe if we can start bringing attention to this, I don't know, maybe we can get to the point where we'll get people knowledgeable enough of these issues that we can start having conversations about, for example, abolishing the Federal Reserve. Okay. Now, I think that we're a ways off from that, but on the state level, passing legislation to make gold and silver legal tender, for example, things of that sort. I think that'll push us in the right direction, and eventually, if we pass legislation like this across the board, we can start talking about some of those other issues that might be considered just a little bit more radical. That I don't think is radical, but some issues like abolishing the Federal Reserve that some people might consider a little bit out there.
Well, that makes 22%. We have 11 states, to my knowledge, that recognize gold and silver. So we got 22%.
Okay.
So a little getting West Virginia and a couple other states will be 25%. 25% is a significant movement. And, I certainly would like to see that. And, certainly one who doesn't understand political science as well as someone who's been deep into it, such as yourself, my goal is to use my gut instinct.
Yep.
I'm more medical than I am political. But
Now, something else I forgot to mention. I was talking about that whole committee process earlier.
okay,
In many states, there is a workaround, but it's considered to be a big no-no in most state legislatures. And to varying degrees, state state legislatures allow it. It's called a discharge motion. In West Virginia, we call it a discharge motion. And
okay,
in other states, they call it something else. What you do is you and it's really frowned upon because it takes power away from the leadership of any legislative body. What you do is you do a motion, and the motion is to bring the bill to the floor, okay? And to completely bypass the legislative process. Now, that particular tactic is really really frowned upon because it takes authority away from the people who are in leadership. It's called a discharge motion. That means you do a motion on the floor, and you say, "Mr. Speaker, Mr. President, at this time, I motion to bring forth before this body for a vote House Bill 2022 or whatever it's called." And then at that point, there will be a vote on it. And most of the time, it's just overwhelmingly voted down. Now, the last time I believe there was maybe something of this sort that actually did have some success and was passed, as I think about 7 or 8 years ago, there maybe 10 years ago at this point, there was a bill on medical cannabis in West Virginia that actually it actually passed by way of a discharge motion. And
is that how it got through?
what's that?
Is that how it got through?
Yep, it got through. Yes, it
Yeah,
got through.
most of us conservative doctors were opposed to it, but we
Hmm.
were just astounded. I didn't know that. Thank you.
Yep, yep. Well, what happened was it was supported by the Democrats and a handful of the Republicans, and this was back when the legislature was pretty close. It was like 40 some Democrats and 50 some Republicans. But there was a discharge motion that went through that got it to the floor, and as a result of that, it was voted upon, and that's how it passed. So
Wow.
yeah, so that's one. Another one that came very close was there was a delegate that brought forth, and it actually did not pass. It barely failed. I think it tied. It was like 50-50, and as a result, it didn't pass. It was on so-called defend the guard legislation. So there was a bill that was going through the legislature that would disallow the any president from um, activating the West Virginia National Guard until such time as there was a declaration of war. And so that was a resolution, a bill that went through that got a discharge motion. And now that one was close. I think that was the last close one we saw. But it
Okay.
failed 50-50, if I remember correctly. And that was actually before my time, before I was in the legislature. but it was a close vote. So that's how it happens sometimes. It's just really, I don't see that happening in states where there's a supermajority. I mean, that was back when it was pretty close, but there's a supermajority in West Virginia right now where discharge motions are not going to be a thing. I mean, it's so which means all the power is going to be concentrated in the committee chairs.
Yeah, I understand that. Yeah.
Yep.
And Neil's on Dynasty made a comment. Weed is a good medical uses. And that may be so, Neil, but use of cannabis does have a lot of bad effects, and I have seen a serious increase in ER visits because of abdominal pain and chest pain and shortness of breath and all sorts of other things because of indiscriminate use of cannabis. So a little bit of a little bit too much of something is never a good thing. So I have to medically and conservatively disagree with you on that topic. If anything, it's like letting people have indiscriminate use of antibiotics, and we get a lot of people who get multi-resistant pathogens such as MRSA. Because of uh, nonsensical use of different medications. Subsequently, I think that nonsensical use of power in legislation, if not used wisely, judiciously, and with a lot of prudence, can lead to a lot of bad outcomes. Now, that's just me. I'm not a politician, so certainly Chris can tell me if I'm wrong or not on that subject.
Well, but yeah, when it comes to the whole process with discharge motions, it's just that was just one workaround. I'd use that as an just as an example of how something could be passed without going through the usual committee process.
So
And
does that
so
bypass the governor then, or does it go directly to the governor after
it,
that?
it had passed this. It had gone to the Senate, or maybe the Senate had already passed it, the state Senate, and then at that point it went to the governor. And I believe maybe the governor was, I think it was maybe Earl Ray Tomlin at the time. This was like, back almost 10 years ago when it first passed.
Okay.
So, so yeah, it was a while back. But yeah, that's how that came to be. But yeah,
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
think.
yeah.
Go ahead. I interrupted. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say it's just a very, very tough process to get anything through. And the lobbyists down there too. Any kind of legislative body, you have all sorts of lobbyists that are there, and they're constantly in the ear of the politicians too, which is
Wow.
really a shame. It's a real shame, but they're down there and they're advocating for their position. And but I mean, the neat thing about state legislative offices, though, compared to federal offices, is that just about anybody, at least in most lower houses, like on the level of state house, that sort of thing, those people can be taken out, even in a primary. And actually, it's easier in a primary because there's fewer voters. So you can talk to people, you can go up and you can literally call them up on the phone or door knock. You can literally talk to people and whenever votes that way. So that's the positive thing, but that doesn't mean it's easy though. It's really not.
I fully understand. Um, I'm going to mention on this topic. If you want to answer this, fine, but I don't think it's relevant to the topic of what we're trying to cover today. Neil is going on about marijuana. He asks you, when will America reclassify weed from a class A to a class 3, and has the Justice Department already got that work done already?
I,
Um, I'm
I don't think
kind
it
of
has. I don't think it's been reclassified at this point. I mean, I think we just kind of have a patchwork right now of the feds not really. I mean, I think they on some level they enforce it, but for all practical purposes, for smaller amounts, they don't really enforce it that much. I think for larger amounts, they do. If we're talking about the big drug dealers, they do it. I don't have any insight into that. I think what we're going to continue to see is state legislatures acting on it to varying degrees, and then I I don't have any insight into whether the federal government is going to do anything about that at any point in the near future. I just don't know. I, I'm
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
I worry about it because I've seen a significant increase of ER visits because of it.
Hmm.
And the funny thing is about when I was working in New Mexico, there's a definite difference between the West and the East. When I ask someone in West Virginia if they smoke, I'm talking about tobacco. When I mentioned smoking in New Mexico, the older people think tobacco, the younger people think marijuana, and it gets
Oh,
confusing.
oh wow.
And a lot of my visits have been marijuana related. So, stacking surveyor says whenever the pharmacy companies allow it, they'll have nothing to do with the government. Well, uh, there's certain things that I think the government does good at, and other things they need to let private industry handle. But the regulation of substances such as marijuana and stronger issues needs to stay within in the field of government. Just like I feel that back during Trump's first administration, the FAA FAA and ATC were at risk of being handed over to private industry for something called privatization. In every country that ever did privatization, the systems got worse. The airlines got more expensive. The fuel got more expensive. Everything doubled and tripled in price. And there was a grassroots movement back then in general aviation that shut it down despite the millions and millions of dollars put out by the big airline industries. So, every once in a while, grassroots movement can go ahead and win over big money. So,
Mhm.
just something to keep in mind. And I think that in sound money, it's going to take a grassroots movement.
Yes. No, I agree. It is. It is, and but we do have a lot of natural allies. Like for example, when I've been to conferences um, that relate to the broader liberty movement, this is an important issue, and they align with us completely on this particular issue, the broader liberty movement. This fits in perfectly. So I'm talking about the people that are allied with Rand Paul and Thomas Massey. He's a congressman out of Kentucky and senator out of Kentucky. And those folks within the liberty movement, they clearly believe that what we're doing right here, we're completely on the right page. Now, the other thing that I want to mention too is, and I had a conversation about this with somebody the other day. They talked about, well, why don't we just create a third party? Well, the problem is that's been tried over and over again. And for whatever reason in our country, a third party has never worked, and I don't think it ever will work. Now, if we ever want to make significant progress within party politics and running for on major issues, I think that the approach, and I'll just use, regardless of what everybody thinks of Trump, and I'm not here to get into a debate about Trump, but one of the things that Trump realized is that going third party was not the way to go.
I
It's
agree.
not. What you do is you don't go third party. You take over one of the two major political parties, and that's what Trump did. And so,
Mhm.
I mean, that's what you do. And because I mean, just think about how different the Republican Party is now versus 10 years ago. Clearly, it can be done. Clearly, you can do that. It just takes you just have to infiltrate the party, take it over, and that's actually what a lot of us in the liberty movement are hoping to do is get to the point where a lot of these issues like gold and silver and other issues that are abolishing the Fed, a lot of those issues will get to the point where we have a candidate one of these days that where it's to make this a part of the party platform. Now we're not there yet, clearly, but you can do it. It's just, the way to go about change is to infiltrate and take over a political party. That's what you have to do in America.
Yeah, the last big thing I remember, and I don't know if you're old enough to remember this, but that's what happened when Clinton was running for office.
Mm-hmm.
You had Ross Perot. Ross Perot split the Republican vote.
Right.
He didn't split the Democratic vote, and it
Yep.
allowed Clinton to move in.
Yep.
I personally think that H.W. Bush would have won if Perot wasn't in there splitting the vote. And, being that uh, President Bush was in office, he had a track record. A track
Mm-hmm.
record which you could pick apart and argue against and all that. When at that time, Clinton didn't have much of a track record outside of his state.
Mm-hmm.
And Perot didn't know as much about Clinton, so he didn't pick Clinton apart that much,
Yep.
which let him allow to look like a hero while these two guys are battling. It split the Republican vote, and Clinton moved in. Like I said, I think George H.W. Bush would have won a second term if
Yep.
Perot wasn't in the middle of it.
Yeah, I think so too.
So, I think that also happened during the Teddy Roosevelt time. I think he ran for office multiple times, and he started his own party. I forget the name of it.
The Bull Moose Party.
That's it. Thank you.
Yep.
And I
It
think
was.
it's the same thing. It just split the vote.
Yeah. But I mean, the thing that people should realize though is you can infiltrate and take over a party. It's been done. It's been done. I mean, Trump did it. Trump, I mean, took over the Republican Party, and the issues that he's advocating for, a lot of them are very different than what his predecessors advocated for and were in favor of. So it can be done. It's not hopeless. It's just you just got to have a movement that can be organized. You have to have enough people, enough support, and I think you can do it. You really can, and I think that's what we're going to see with the Democrats too. The Democrats are going to have a reckoning, I think, in 4 years, but they're in a little bit different position than the Republicans. I mean, the Democrats do have a lot of advantages over Republicans. I mean, I think that regardless of what people say about Republicans, I mean, I think the Democrats are the party of the billionaires. They really are for the most part.
Yeah,
The
that has
Democrats.
totally changed.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And so, but their base is very much not in the same place as their billionaires, as their billionaire supporters. So I don't. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with them in a few years. To see whether they try to go. I think the Democrats have to go to the middle. I think Republicans don't, and it's just Republicans have and conservatives have a structural advantage with the electoral college. Like we don't have to win. Like I mean, look, for the past two presidents, one has won at least one term without the popular vote. Both Trump and George W. Bush won at least one time without the popular vote. And so we have that structural advantage. When I say I'm saying me and as a conservative and as a Republican, we have the advantage over Democrats in that sense. So the Democrats have to go to the middle. They really do. And if they don't, they're just going to keep losing.
Well, I can't see sensible people who were raised in a Judeo-Christian conservative mentality
Hmm.
agreeing with all the left and all the woke.
Yep.
And to quote Margaret Thatcher, uh, uh, liberals will survive as long as they have someone else's money to spend.
Well, the thing that Democrats don't realize is, and this is what they don't get. If you notice, one of the things that President Trump does is he picks what's called what I would call an 80-20 issue. And he just does it over and over and over again. I'm talking about those issues like boys competing in girls sports or men competing in women's sports or immigration, things that where there's a super majority of the people that are on his side on those issues, and he just sticks with those. And the problem with the Democrats is they fall for it every single time, Tiger, every single time.
Yes, they do.
Whereas, and that's the thing that's been so genius about them. And they fall for it, hook, line, and sinker, over and over again. They just keep falling for it. And so I think that's the major problem with the Democrats is they just, yeah, he basically tricks them and they can't help themselves. They just can't help themselves.
They hate him so much that they don't see the issues. To them, the issue is hate Trump.
Right. Absolutely. And there are issues, I think, where the American people overall, not necessarily in my district where I live, but I'm saying overall, where the Democrats are probably they could win on some issues, but they don't emphasize those. Trump forces them to talk about the issues that are bad for Democrats, and they always fall for it every single time. So
I mean,
yeah.
so what I'm going to say is, well, let me put it this way, because I know it's Sunday and I know you have a family. We're at the 1 hour mark. If you want to continue, we will. If you want to close, we can do that too. But no matter what your decision is, I can't say this enough, people. Citizens for Sound money, gold and silver is money, getting things so we have alternate types of currency, taking things away from the people in power is seriously important. And voting to support your finances, your financial survivability in your individual states, towns, etc., is highly important. And a lot of people say they hate politics. I do. I say I hate politics a lot myself. But whether you hate it, or you love it, or you're in the middle, it affects your life and it affects your family. So, after that, do you want to continue or?
Well, I do need to get going, but I just do. I want to follow up on that point, and I just want to tell everybody who's out there about how important it is to research your candidates. Okay, so let's say there's somebody that's watching this and you're a Republican or you vote in Republican primaries. There's a very good chance that in at least some of those races you're going to be able to vote in a primary, and there's going to be two candidates. Okay, there's probably going to be the guy or gal who's been in there for a while, and then there's going to be the challenger, or there's going to be an open seat. And you might be more familiar with one person or the other. And it's so critically important to try to do your research on the candidates to see where they are on these issues. And also too, you can sometimes send them an email or call them up and just ask them where they are on a certain issue. It's so important to research, not just for the general election, because then I mean, for most of us, whether if you tend to be a little bit more conservative, then you're going to vote, chances are, for the Republican over the Democrat. Okay. But that's only half of it. Okay. It's really critical in these primaries that you research these candidates because there is an epidemic of rhinos out there. I mean, there's a high chance that if there's somebody who's on the ballot as a Republican, there a lot of them are going to be supporting raising taxes. There's going to be a lot of them that are going to be in favor of more government regulations. Okay, things that you would think that are just being a fiscal conservative 101, and they're not voting that way. Okay, so you can't just look at the party label and say, well, they both call themselves Republicans, so I'm going to just pick the one whose name I'm most familiar with. Please don't do that. Please go and research your candidates, see where they are on the issues, call them up and ask them questions. And you can, a lot of times, maybe they don't want to answer the question. Okay, well, that tells you something if they don't want to actually answer the question. So I just want to leave it at that, Tiger. But I do need to. I got to get home and get some dinner and spend some time with my boys.
That's perfectly good. I do want to briefly show this to everyone, and that way, if you all want to come back to the chat or back to the live stream, this right here is. Let me maximize this a little bit. This is what I highlighted, what Montague Norman said in 1924, which still applies today. I'll read it real fast for you, Chris. Capital must protect itself in every possible way, both by combination and legislation. Debts must be collected, mortgages foreclosed as rapidly as possible. When through the process of law, the common people lose their homes, they'll become more docile and more governed through the strong arm of government applied by a central force of wealth under leading financiers. These truths are well known amongst our principal men who are now engaged in forming an imperialism to govern the world. By dividing the voter through the political party system, we can get them to expend their energies in fighting for questions of no importance. Thus, it is thus by discreet action we can secure ourselves that which has been so well planned and so successfully accomplished. It's been going on for centuries, and it will continue, because this is not an issue of left versus right. This is an issue of good versus evil.
Yes.
Okay, we got to protect ourselves. So I'm going to say thank you to everyone for coming to the chat and to the live stream. I have worked really hard at the outro. If you have a moment, Chris, I'll show it to you. If you don't,
Yes,
I can't blame you.
absolutely. Yes.
You and I will say goodbye personally. Thanks for everyone for coming. I really appreciate you all. And oh shoot, I made a promise. I need to keep it. It won't take very long. Let me go ahead and get that done. I promised to give away a silver quarter for the amount of people have hit the thumbs up. We're in the 37 mark, so let me go ahead and harvest the participants and bring up the tiger wheel. Get rid of everyone that's in there. I'll bring it up real fast. Get rid of this. And we'll go ahead and put the participants in, paste without formatting. There aren't that many here right now. So the winner will get a 90% silver quarter. Please make sure that you claim your winnings in no less than 48 hours, 2 days. Otherwise, you lose the chance to go ahead and get your winnings. Send it to the tigerstacker@gmail.com. Ellie, will you put that into the chat, please? So we turn down the volume because some people complain that it's really loud. Here we go. Oh no, that means I give away 2 quarters. We'll try it again. Here we go. I will have to get rid of that. Maple Leaf Numismatist, congratulations. Make sure that you contact me within 48 hours at the tigerstacker@gmail.com. So once again, thanks everyone for coming. See you in the next one. Oh, Chris,
yes.
Would you like to have a live stream with Daniel Diaz, Citizens for Sound Money?
Yes, absolutely.
Awesome. Be ready for that, everyone. It's going to be coming, and you are going to learn a lot. So take care, everyone, and stay for the outro. We work hard at making it for all of you.
Come and join the stream. Gold and silver lovers chasing precious dreams. Collectors, stackers, gather round. History in your hand. Old and timeless treasures from every distant land. And we are many, we are strong. In this journey we belong. From the past the stories shine. Gold and silver, yours and mine. Coins and relics, tales untold, whispers from the past. Legends live in ancient gold, memories that last. Through the ages we unite, shining side by side. Silver gleams and golden nights, a never-ending pride. We are many, we are strong. In this journey we belong. From the past the stories shine. Gold and silver, yours and mine. Coins and relics, tales untold, whispers from the past. Legends live in ancient gold, memories that last. Through the ages we unite, shining side by side. Silver gleams and gold ignites, a never-ending pride. We are many, we are strong. In this journey we belong. From the past the stories shine. Gold and silver, yours and mine. We are many, we are strong. In this journey we belong. From the past the stories shine. Gold and silver, yours and mine. Gold and silver, yours and mine. Coins and relics, tales untold, whispers from the past. Legends live in ancient gold, memories that last. Through the ages we unite, shining side by side. Silver gleams and gold ignites, a never-ending pride. We are many, we are strong. In this journey we belong. From the past the stories shine. Gold and silver, yours and mine. Through the ages we unite, shining side by side. Silver gleams and gold ignites, a never-ending pride. A never-ending pride. We are many, we are strong. In this journey we belong. From the past the stories shine. Gold and silver, yours and mine. Gold and silver, yours and mine. Through the gleams and gold ignites, a never-ending pride.